Hi, we're live.
Oh crap, you did that fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said, I was like, are you ready?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely ready.
Yeah, we're
You did
here.
that fast.
We're here.
Oh yeah. No.
Super cool.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. Crap. Arm and Hammer. Like
Mm-hmm.
the OG Arm and Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Um he was I'm kind of excited because he was legit the first to ever do it. Like the space that we see right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah, first to ever do it. Like it just I don't know. This is super cool for me. Like I remember calling him fearless leader
Mm-hmm.
and DMing him and it just
Well, that was gonna be my first question. How did you find him?
I
Was it
mean
Instagram? Was it YouTube? Was it kind of just like a random
it was
find?
definitely like I found YouTube and then I kind of found him.
Mm-hmm.
Um like cuz I was just searching everything CrossFit and so when I he just was the one that popped up.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
um yeah, I mean and I want to say it was like 2018. Part of me wants to say it was 2017. Either way, like I just consumed literally everything that he sent.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just literally everything he put up. I would watch his podcast with his friends, his like I would even try to do like when he would be like, "Hey, don't do, 18.5 the way that I did 18.5, uh do it a different way." And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Okay." You know what I mean? Like he was just it was the same like he showed up on YouTube around the time that Craig Ritchie and maybe Craig Ritchie was a little bit before because he was doing bodybuilding a little bit before he was doing CrossFit, so he was on a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was it Armen, Craig Ritchie, and John Glad.
Mm.
Um, and I would just eat up everything any of them put up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So it was for me, it was super. They were that was the original three and I loved it. And Armin especially because he would always I always call him the GOAT because he was actually blocked by Dave Castro. Like I just do.
Is that a rite of passage, maybe?
I mean
Maybe we have to ask him if that's a rite of passage to
yeah,
be invited backstage after or
I
into the
just
crowd or into the family or whatever. I wonder if that's like the rite of passage.
those three and I don't know who was the first. I feel like the first videos I saw of YouTubers going into athlete spaces,
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely Armin, but I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Craig Ritchie came later. John Glad might have been in that space a little quicker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really not sure, but I know that those three were the ones that were they visited Rich at the ranch. They were able, they got access to Tia Claire Toomey. They got access um YouTubers. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm specifically talking about YouTubers,
Mm-hmm.
but they were the ones that they were I mean as far as I knew, they were the first.
Yeah.
So,
Did you like their content more for the professional side, or did you like it more for the cool insight to their personal life and, to whatever extent that they would allow you kind of into their personal space, or was it kind of a combination of both?
I I originally loved all of their contents because they were doing the workouts. And
Mhm.
so you'd watch them try to do the regional workouts, try to do the open workouts, like, and you could follow along with them. And as a new CrossFitter at the time, like I also was like, oh, this is super fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It just that was the original. And then I kind of found them on Instagram, followed their content.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of curious to me a little bit, just because, I think all of them kind of still do CrossFit on some level, but not on the same level that they were doing it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, they Armen and John Glaude both went into like being on the broadcasts.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like they took their YouTube channel and everything that they had worked hard for and everything that they had done, and they leveraged that, and they were on broadcast. Like John Glaude did a commercial for CrossFit one year at the
Mm-hmm.
games where you know what I mean? Like he talked about his weight loss.
I think he was on. Didn't they do something like a day at the games or the day at the games or something like that, where after the events they would have, or like during like long breaks they would have, like Tommy Marquez and Sean Woodland, not Sean Woodland. Tommy Marquez did it a couple times, but like Dan Bailey did it, and I remember seeing John Glaude on there too, or
Oh, yeah.
whatever.
No,
So
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like
yeah.
they got on the actual broadcast for the games.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was Annie.
Sakamoto.
Thank you,
Yeah.
because my brain is dumb.
Mm-hmm.
It was Annie
You're
Sakamoto.
just so excited.
I know I am
You're
a
so
little bit, yeah. Um, yeah, it was Annie would be on there, Dan Bailey would be on there, John Glaude was definitely on there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask him, but I'm not really sure if Armin was on there or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I know that he did coverage for the sanctionals, and that like he was the original dude that and like Armin was the original dude that like questioned programming.
Mm.
John Glaude never did that. You know, Craig Ritchie would just be pissed at the programming, but he never analyzed it. But Armin really did. He had that kind of that brain. It was like the first brain that did it. Like I know, um, there's people now that are doing it, and everybody's analyzing the program. Everybody's on YouTube doing that and testing the workout and trying the workout and blah blah. But I mean, really, Armin was the first guy to do that in the YouTube space.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
yeah,
I remember you introducing Armen to me. It was more about the walkthroughs on how to do workouts, not
I was like, oh, Armin
yeah.
tested it.
Yes.
Armin tested it. This
Yeah,
is what he said.
this is
Let's
what he
go.
said. This is
Yeah.
what he did. This is how he did it. And I
Yeah.
very much remember my first introduction to Armen and you following him and you sharing, his content with me or whatever. And I always liked that. And then I feel like that we bonded more over the lack of excitement for multiple run swim runs and long distance swimming and whatever. So
Well, you both
which I was like, yes, I agree with you. They should stop they should stop swimming, they should stop paddling. It's the same workout. Like
I think the two of you both have that brain where you give a crap about the programming and the program for the games, and I think that's where you kind of got into it a lot more than normal. Like you just were like, why are we doing this again? And at that simultaneous moment, he put up a video like, why are we doing this again?
And I was like, yes,
and
I feel seen, I feel heard, someone gets it. Like for me, I just was like, we're doing this again, and I don't take away from the programming as a longer distance, like capacity kind of workout and whatever, but like, can we switch it up a little bit? Can we make it different a little bit? And so I feel like that was like more of, when I was listening to him a little bit more and, you had, introduced me to him a little bit more and whatever. And, but yes, I really appreciated the fact that I wasn't alone when I was like, oh, again, we're doing this again.
Yeah, I know. That's why I say, like, super funny, and I want to bring it up because so many people have been blocked by Dave. And I think it's kind of just fun for Dave to do it. I don't think he's doing it maliciously. I just think that it's kind of like, dude, you're annoying me right now. Like we're not doing this. But he was the OG of that. I mean, he's the OG of so many things on YouTube.
Yeah.
And how kind of the model for YouTube CrossFit has come to pass, like how it's evolved, how it's grown, how it's made its, you know, it's people are making it lucrative now. And he was the kind of original one to do it. And I, you know, yeah, it was super fun to watch him. I know he killed me on a couple of workouts because, and this is funny, and I'll probably say it to him, but he he would always do the workouts, like he would do the open workouts or Murph or whatever, and he never looked like he was moving fast. But
I don't know if he's going to appreciate that too
much.
I
know. I'm sorry, but he just didn't. It was just, for me, I was just like, oh, that looks like a pace I could keep. And then I would get into that pace and be like, well, I'm going to die.
Or you see his time and you're like,
I'm like,
wait, that pace doesn't look like it would be that
7 minutes away. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like it didn't look like, cause I was like, and I would think things were doable.
Yeah.
And I don't think I understood how fit he actually was.
Well, that sneaky fit was a true title for him.
I loved it to death. And I subscribed to that like immediately when he put that out. Like when he put out sneaky fit, like I absolutely was on go with that. You know what I mean? It was super cool.
Yeah. And but, I did when it was like,
hey, Jeff, behind the scenes guy, I don't need notes open.
Oh, he's here.
I'm about to die.
That was me. I asked that question.
Oh.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm about to die.
Hi.
Holy crap.
What's up?
Fearless leader.
You've been calling me that for a long time. I don't know where that started. I don't know what that's from, but I appreciate it. I guess I'll take it. I'm not upset.
I think it's from watching like all the Sands podcasts where you guys did like all the Marvel recaps and whatnot. and I just kind of got it from there. But
oh man, I'm so glad I mean, listen, I miss those guys so much, but I'm so glad we're not doing that right now because I feel like the last handful of Marvel movies I watched have not been that good. It's just been kind of a slog. It's been kind of weird.
Dude, I can't believe that you actually, and I saw it and it's on video. I cannot believe you said Endgame's not the best. Like, I'm so upset and my heart hurts.
I'm sorry I did that to you. I never meant to hurt you like that.
It broke me, and I was like, now I have to think about it, and I have to go back and watch.
I'm so rude. I'm the worst. I can't believe it.
Heartbreak from the begining. I guess that's how the conversation's gonna go, right?
Really kicking this off with like a punch to the gut.
Dude, he had me. Every podcast you guys did, you had me, and then that last one where you're like, I don't know, it might be. I was like, oh my god, what do you mean you don't know?
Oh, I mean, I feel like at this point, even Endgame, whatever problems I may have had with it at the moment. Right now, nowadays, by the way, Endgame we use as like, I need a long movie that the dogs can pay attention to while my wife and I are taking the kid out of the house so the dogs don't get bored. And it's like, this is 3 hours. This is perfect. Just give them something like it's this or it's Shawshank Redemption. Which one are they going to enjoy more?
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is an excellent movie, but
absolutely.
I'm coming at this from a fan perspective because I've always just been a giant fan. And the one thing I want to ask you is I've literally gone through all your stuff and I cannot find where you say the name for this guy. Like,
Oh,
can you-
BRP.
yeah. What do the initials mean?
I'm dying right now. Okay. So it stands for Boner the Rainbow Pinata.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah, that's BRP. That's my guy. Actually, I named my company after him when I was like doing all like the different like designs and shirts and consulting and YouTube and this and that. I was like, yeah, we'll just be BRP Media, like whatever.
Oh,
And
that's
one of my buddies
amazing.
was like, does anybody ever ask you what it stands for? I was like, no, nobody ever asked. He's like, are you worried that people? I was like, no, not at all.
Oh, well, there you
It
go.
is what
Sorry.
it is. Yeah. So
I couldn't help it.
The story is it was I don't know if you remember, I actually had the rainbow pinata in
Yes.
I had BRP in
Yep.
my studio constantly. He was a pinata that my wife had on her bachelorette party. She took a bunch of her girlfriends out of the country. I think they went to Mexico for her bachelorette party, like a dozen women. And they were having a great time. One of them brought this pinata. They were going to destroy it. She thought it was so cute. She was like, no, it's so cute. I want to name him. I'm going to name him Boner. So my wife named this pinata Boner and flew back with the pinata. And she was like, I have this thing. I really like it. It's really cute. Like you should put it in like the bedroom, like your office. I was like, great. And then I started realizing, I was like, of course, why would I not do that? And I started realizing that it was like a really good sort of like visual addition to the studio space. So I kept it behind me because it was attention grabbing, but it was never really in focus. It was just always something that was there. And so eventually I was like, well, now this thing has become synonymous with, what I do. I like had a friend of mine was a designer, and she did logo and branding design. And
Yes.
so she was like, can you think of anything that kind of fits with what you do? And I was like, well, I have this pinata named Boner. And she's like, you got it. And then she drew up that design. She drew up that little cartoon of BRP.
Bro, I will never wear those joggers the same way again.
Yes, someone else wears those joggers. I thought it was just me. I still have like 6 pairs that I rotate through. They're like my comfiest pairs.
Armen, she wears them religiously. Hi, I'm Colleen, by the way. I'm Garrett's wife. It's very
Nice
nice
to
to
meet
meet you. But
It's a pleasure.
she religiously still has those. And I don't know if you can see, she has your shirt on. We both have the shirt.
That's the Dia de los Muertos Open.
Yeah,
man.
Open de los Muertos.
Absolutely.
So she made sure that she bought both of us one, and we wore it the same day at the gym. We were that quintessential couple that wore the same shirt, and it was a big deal. And then everybody, like, it took people a minute to realize that we were wearing the same shirt, and they were like, "Where did we get it? Where'd you get it from?" And of course, she was like, "I'm gonna tell you where I got it from, and you need to go get it." And oh my God, yeah. So she absolutely wears those pants religiously. So you're not
That's
alone.
fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate the support. It really does mean a lot to me. Like even after all this time, to like be able to talk to people that like really enjoyed what we did and what I did, and still love because I still wear all my BRP gear because it's cool. I still have a bunch of my old stuff, and
Well, it was super funny because the sneaky fit, because not my wife, because my wife's not sneaky fit. She's actually fit. I'm sneaky fit. But I did want to tell you wrecked me. Do you remember one of the video that you did about Murph, where it was like you broke it down so it was like 2, 4, like I don't know.
Absolutely,
it was like
2, 4, 6. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was 50 rounds of 2, 4,
rounds.
6.
Yeah, and I was like, awesome. That sounds amazing for me. I'm gonna do that. And then I realized you have to go faster. Like
yeah. It has so many transitions that you get lost in it if you don't keep moving.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
I gotta say, maybe when I felt that weirdly became something that I got really like connected to, that Murph strategy that I used. And I guess I appreciate it. I really do, because you know, it got me into a lot of hot water with people with the exact same problem that you just described, which is like I was so much slower, but my response was always like, but you weren't that tired though. So it kind of makes up for it. Like you finish Murph and you're like, man, I was a little bit slower, but I feel okay. And I feel okay is where it pays off. Yeah.
Before I get lost in nostalgia and like run out of all my time, what I really wanted to ask you was, I was such a big fan of the Sands podcast. And like, I mean, obviously all the little clips that you did at where it was just you and you were, you know, tearing apart programming or tearing, you know what I mean? I still
speaking the truth.
I can
thank you.
I still consider you the OG of YouTube CrossFit just because you got like blocked by Dave. But
I appreciate that.
What I really want to know, what came first? Did Sands come first, or did you just putting out media by yourself? Because you came out in 2018 and I found you with John Glaude and Craig Ritchie at the same time, pretty much.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. The timeline is definitely there's definitely some curiosities in the timeline. So I was doing I don't know if you guys are familiar with or if you guys remember Flow Elite. It was like the Flow Sports. They do flow grappling. They do a bunch of flow wrestling, track. I don't know. They just stream a bunch of content like that, and that's where I started Scale As Needed. Right. I started it originally as kind of like a web show. We were doing like quick hits, like 8 to 10 minute long videos, 3 or 4 news stories. A garbage truck is about to pass by. This, by the way, is how I do my podcast these days, like walking through the neighborhood.
That's absolutely super cool.
Which is, you'll see just the amount of like sweat, like the shininess. It gets even crazier. I'll be honest with you. I get shinier. It's hard to believe. So we started Scale As Needed as kind of like a web show, like a quick hits, 3 or 4 quick news pieces type show. That was like, I was doing all the producing, all the editing, all the writing. And then I had these 2 buddies, the only, like maybe 2 of the only like 3 other people in the office that did CrossFit. And it was Cliff and Kyle. So they were like filmmakers, super nerds, but they'd been doing CrossFit as long as I had been. They started on Main Site in 2007, 2008, when they were like living together in their dumpy little apartment in Austin. And so when we first started talking, we just like nerd out, geek out, talk. And then eventually we like looked around and like, oh, we've been talking for like 45 minutes. Maybe we should like record one of these and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And so we started recording it, and we didn't really have a name for it. We didn't really know what was going on, but we started recording it. And then eventually the Scale As Needed web show became the Scale As Needed podcast. It became SAN. And then in like early 2018, Flow downsized like basically all of us. And by all of us, I mean me, because Cliff and Kyle still staying at Flow, because their jobs were much more broad. Like they were helping with all the documentaries, and they were helping with all the editing and producing of all like these different films and stuff that they were doing. Whereas I was very much about like the CrossFit space, the weightlifting space, the strongman space, and that just didn't work out. So during the downsizing, I had a really good relationship with our chief content officer. And I basically negotiated part of my package of severance was to keep the IP of Scale As Needed and other things that we had done during that time, which was like nobody else got to do that. But I had a really good relationship with them, and he knew that they were just going to make it die. Like it was never going to be a thing with them. So he was okay with me basically taking it and running with it from that point on. And so in 2018, when I launched my YouTube channel, I was like, all right, we're going to keep doing this podcast. And so it kind of happened at the same time, but like the heart of it was that Scale As Needed kind of started before, but in a different format, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, first of all, because my mind is definitely on the fact that like I remember you trying to name scale it, like you would let the audience name scale as needed.
That is one of my favorite gags we've ever done. I love it so much because people came up with the most hilarious names, like way funnier than anything I feel like I ever would have come up with on my own. Yeah.
To the point where I didn't even know that it was scale as needed for the longest time. It took like 2 months for me to figure out that it was actually scale as needed, and it wasn't one of your followers that were like, whatever weird thing came up or whatever.
That could be one of the reasons why it never really took off on like iTunes. It was popular on YouTube, and we had a big following of people like in the space. But I think that's why it never kicked off on YouTube or on iTunes, because it was impossible to find. Nobody would search for scale as needed.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then when did you, I remember you adding Chase, and for me, Chase was like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Cliff and Kyle. Like, they're some of my favorite people ever watched on YouTube. But like, when did you add Chase?
Oh man, Chase! I love Chase. Chase is the man.
I saw him at the games. What year?
Oh, did you really?
Were you there? You were there for that, right? You were in.
I must have been there. I don't think there's any games that he went to that I wasn't there.
He was on a team. That's where we saw him on the broadcast.
Yeah. So I actually don't know if he's competing. He was at regionals on a team.
Yeah, that was it.
So that must have been. Let's see. Last year of regionals was 2018. So we hired him at the beginning of 2017. I want to say like right around end of spring of 2017 is when we hired him. Let's see. He got on the show pretty quick after that. You know, it was pretty quick after that he was on the show. I'd say within a few months, because I'd hired him on as like a content marketer. And I needed someone who was like in the CrossFit space and like super into it. I completely underestimated how into CrossFit he was, because he was like, "Oh, I want to train to make it to the games." And I remember, he still brings this up because it was kind of rude to me, but I remember being like, "You have no fucking chance, my guy." Like, I hate to tell. Can I cuss, by the way? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
I was like, "You have no fucking chance, my guy. Like, I can't. I love you. You're cool. You're a stranger, and I'm telling this to your face right now. Like, there's a 0% chance this is gonna happen. You're not gonna be that fit." And like, listen, he hasn't made it to the games, but not for lack of trying. He is so fit. It is like obscene how fit this guy is. And he's just so good. He's such a good dude. But I just remember being kind of like borderline rude to him, because like, this guy has just started doing CrossFit and thinks he's going to make it to the games. I was like, he's fitter than I ever was in my entire life.
Everybody though? Everybody thinks that they're going to start CrossFit and make it to the games. like everybody does that. But I mean, he is super fit. Like, I've watched him work out, and I've watched you like film him do, the open, and I've watched him do regionals. So like, I get it. He is super fit, but
yeah, he's legit.
The one Chase, you put up a video and you guys were talking, and I had seen like so many of your videos, and then all of a sudden, you guys were talking about how he's mixed, like he's mixed race.
He is.
And I looked at my wife and I was like, I had no idea. Because I'm mixed. Like, my dad's black, my mom's white, but no one ever knows that.
Just like Chase. Yeah, that's Chase's. That's Chase as well.
Oh my God! Like, there's another one. It's like me, Chase, and Logic, like in the world, and that's it. Like, we're the only ones. Awesome. Like, that's super cool.
Chase is like a real, very, very hardcore hip hop fan. And I don't know if he would appreciate the Logic comparison. He'd be like, Logic is trash. Like, he doesn't like a lot. I imagine he doesn't like Logic's music. But the comparison is true. The comparison is true.
I'm not.
You're the only three.
Yeah, we're the three out there with pink cheeks. It's fine. We're good. Like, it's good.
Yeah, and he married. He met, fell in love, and married this woman from the gym, who's Mexican American, and now they have like awesome. A beautiful mixed baby. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is the baby can tan?
I think that baby is gonna definitely tan.
There you go. I love
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love like all four of you together. The chemistry was amazing. And like it was so just, I don't know, authentic. Like you guys were just so
Yeah.
authentic all the time.
I felt that as well. You know, we never really held back in our opinions about things. I think part of that was also because we were lucky enough that when we first started making content, maybe it was like an ego thing that I had. Maybe it was completely unearned. I have no idea. But I just felt like as long as I'm honest, nothing bad can come of it, which is not true, by the way. It's absolutely not true. You can be too honest, or at the very least, like honest and like wrong, or honest and rude. Like there's obviously a lot of, I just felt like if I just spoke my mind, you know, I like my thoughts. I'm sure other people will like my thoughts too. And I think that resonated to a certain extent. And you know, we also were just in a really good environment where we all just kind of hit it off, and we all had really, you know, similar ways of sort of thinking things through, but different opinions about where things should go and how things should work. So it kind of worked well because we never clashed on like the why we're thinking what we're thinking. We clashed on what the end result or solution or the reason why Endgame is not as good as Infinity War. Like, you know, it's like those things that we clashed on, not the actual, you know, thought processes. So there was always a lot of like mutual respect between how we got to where we were with our opinions and stuff.
Well, it was always funny because I always thought of like Cliff and Kyle in my head. It took me a long time to like call them Cliff and Kyle because in my head they were Jay and Silent Bob. And then Chase was Captain America, and then you brought them all together. But no, that podcast was super awesome, which is like that's kind of leading me into my next question, which was I always wondered if you were like so popular. I mean, at least like YouTube CrossFit space, you were so popular. Your shorts and your long podcasts, like they were popular. And then you went and you did you were on the broadcast for Strength and Depth.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't you did a couple other ones, right? Like with Morning Chalk Up and
yeah, we did. So that was right around the time where all the organizations kind of like split off, and it became like the different event organizers were putting on their own like official CrossFit events.
Yeah, you coined sanctionals. That word will always be your word. That will always be your word. You coined the word sanctionals. That will always be yours.
There it is. When you're around long enough, that sort of thing just happens, I guess. But yeah, we made really good relationships with a bunch of the event organizers, and they were, especially in Europe and especially with Wadapalooza Loud and Live, you know, they were putting out a ton of events. They needed people who could do color commentary and play-by-play. And so I was lucky enough to be able to do Strength and Depth. I think I did one of the open announcements as well, like maybe 19.5 perhaps. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we were lucky enough to be able to do a bunch of trips and a bunch of events like that. And I loved it. I had such a good time doing the commentating. It was so really awesome fun to just be able to talk about. Yeah, it's just it's cool because also a well-structured commentating team has somebody like back then. We had Brian Friend, who now is doing all of his own like Be Friendly stuff, and he's been blowing up in the space, which has been really fun to see. But back then we had a guy like Brian who would provide us with like a ton of stats. And sometimes it was stuff that we knew, and sometimes it was stuff that we had no idea of, but like it would help us so much. Like a well padded, you know, a good broadcast isn't just the two people who are talking. There's a lot of work that goes into it. And I remember being so nervous for the open announcement because it was the first time I'd done something in my mind, that big, that momentous, and live at the same time. So it was a really big deal. And we had like the director in our ear who was like, you know, and cut to Armen. And it's like camera B. And I had to like turn my head and like talk to the right camera. It was just like, I just remember like being so freaked out, but like having such a good time and we were on for like 3.5 hours. We like commentated we commentated the people who were like normal members of their gym who happened to just get like draw the straws to be the ones to like be the normal people to demonstrate it on the live stream.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. It was just such a strange, like thinking about it and looking back at it, was such a strange thing to be a part of, but very, very lucky to have gotten a chance to do that. Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, yeah, because
Thanks for reminding me of that. I completely forgotten that even happened.
Well, I mean, honestly, you were the first person in the YouTube CrossFit space to know programming, to critique programming, to, I don't know, I like to call it talk shit. Like in every other sport,
I say tell the truth.
in every other sport.
If that's not the dichotomy of a good relationship, by the way, I don't know what it is.
Sorry, but I mean, if they can do it for basketball and baseball and every other sport on the planet, like you can talk shit. But you were the first person to do it, and you did it so well. You were the first person to break down programming. You were the first person to be like, I don't know if I like this, or I don't know if that belongs there, or whatever. And I remember specific shows where it was like, hey, breaking down the programming of this, not sure. Like, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't, did you plan on that? Like, did you plan on being like that dude that, because now there's a ton in the space.
Sure. That's a good question. I would say, looking back at the type of work that I was doing, embarrassingly, or maybe like, maybe it's impressive, either embarrassing or impressive, but an embarrassingly and
not embarrassing, impressive
small amount of what I did was planned. So much of it was just, what is it that I don't see that I want to talk about? What do I talk to Chase about when we don't have a camera on and Chase texts me, or I give him a call, or we're hanging out getting coffee and we're talking about whatever, like, what are we talking about? And then I would think to myself, well, this is interesting. We should probably talk about this more, or film this, or can I dive deeper into this? And so a lot of what I come to see is like some of my favorite stuff that I've done, and some of the best stuff that I've done is stuff that was just organic that way. It was just things that I knew that it was a conversation that I was having. And my thought process with content creation was always, always, always about, if I'm having this conversation, there's at least a handful of other people who are having this conversation. And if they're having this conversation, then there's probably a handful more that are also having this conversation. So whether or not I get referenced in, these regular, conversations that like CrossFitters are having, at the chalk bucket or whatever, however you want, like whatever the water cooler equivalent is at the box, right? Like, people are having these like different discussions about, oh, what did you think of the programming? Or did you see this cool performance or whatever? And it happens in every other sport. It happens in every other hobby. And that sort of discussion wasn't happening in our space. Nobody was really intelligently breaking down, why does this fit here, or why doesn't this fit here, or why does this work out? Why is this so devastating, or why is this so elegant, or those sorts of questions. And so that was almost accidental. Like, I just was experimenting with so many different types of content and so many different things that I was thinking of talking about. I always, always, always just fell back on, what is it that I'm talking to my friends about? What do I hear happening at the gym that they're talking about? And then how can I address that in a way that sort of like moves the conversation forward? I just remember always thinking, people are going to have these discussions, not just about the programming, but what's going on at CrossFit HQ, or what's going on with regionals, or what's going on with sanctionals, or, what's going on with Greg, and like all this stuff. Like, they're going to talk about this stuff. So maybe,
I personally think that you paved the way for that. Cause like now, if you fast forward to now, you have so many different YouTube outlets that are talking about everything that you talked about like 4 years ago. And
that's one of the reasons why I kind of like saw the writing on the wall and sort of stepped away, was I just felt like I kept having the same conversation. I just kept saying the same stuff. And at a certain point, it kind of gets exhausting to like bring the same things to the table and not see, a response. Not like there wasn't a response from the community, because the community was 100% the best part of like everything that I did. Like, you guys other people who like interacted and asked questions and like had their opinions. Sometimes we agreed, sometimes we disagreed, but the fact that I kept coming from a place of like, I love this thing, I want to see this thing succeed, here are my thoughts on how it could, here's my ideas of like where it's failing and what types of things it could be doing better. And I just kept seeing like the same things happening over and over again, and I felt like, like I'm in a hamster wheel.
Well, I think a lot of your playbook is coming out now. Like, I think you see a lot of the Armen Hammer playbook come out now because you were again, I'm not sure, but I'll throw like Craig Ritchie and John Glaude in there, but I still feel like maybe it was you and John Glaude that did it at the same time. But you guys like paved the way for going down and meeting athletes and interviewing athletes and working out with athletes and putting that content out there. And there was nothing like that. So we all ate it up like immeasurably. Like it was just like, oh my God, we're seeing Rich Froning like just in his gym chilling, whatever. Oh
yeah,
my God.
Yeah, that was a lot of that was so cool. Yeah. I wouldn't know. I don't know if I was the first one to do that sort of thing. And I really do appreciate the kudos. I'll take the kudos. I'll take the pat on my back for sure. I know Craig had been doing a lot of day in the life stuff for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like an impressive track record of like how long he'd been doing day in the life stuff. And then it was right around the same time of regionals sort of going away and all these big changes at CrossFit, that he started traveling a lot more. I think until then he was kind of like stuck in the UK. And so we weren't seeing him at these events. And I remember one of the first big events that we saw him at, other than probably the games, was Wadapalooza. I just remember like running into him at Wadapalooza. I was like, what are you even doing here? And he's like, oh, I've been stateside for like 4 weeks. I've gone everywhere. I was like, oh, you're going to have a lifetime worth of content out of this. Like, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys all kind of blew up together. And if anything, I would give you like all probably the original 3 that like made this kind of new like genre. Like now you have like Talking Elite Fitness, Clydesdale, like Coffee Pods and Wads, Sevon, like everybody's like now behind the camera on YouTube. But I feel like the 3 of you were the original 3 and kind of laid this blueprint down. And so that's why I was always like, well, now it's kind of the time, like you should be, I don't know, the Terminator and come back from the, you know what I mean?
Like, yeah, it's been interesting. There's always, I'm sorry, there's someone doing like some wood trimming.
No,
so
it's
you hear
fine.
that big buzzing. There's always like the itch, because I obviously stepped away. My son was born, the week of the CrossFit Games in 2021. And so we had like a 4-day-old, and I was like live streaming coverage of the 21 CrossFit Games. I was like, I would do an event and it would like perfectly match up with his sleep schedule. And then he would wake up, the event would end. I'd like run out, like help my wife, change him, get him fed, get her fed, get her like, water. And then she'd be like, okay, go back to the stream. I was like, okay, I'll be back in like 2 hours. Like, cool. Like run out, go back and do it. And that was, you guys know what that's like insane. Like it feels like a fever dream when you like think back on what that experience was like. But I just remember, that happened, and I had like a really big perspective shift, like right at that moment. Like, man, I want to be here for him. I want to be around for him. I'm feeling pretty burnt out, like on the CrossFit thing, because 2020 and 2021 were really tough years. And I was like, I'm just gonna step away for a little bit. Like, I just don't want to talk about this for a little bit. And when I get the itch, when I get the urge, I'll like step back into it. And while I've gotten sometimes like that little itch and I've gotten that little urge, it just hasn't like bit me to the point where I want to jump back into like that regular content creation, at least not around the CrossFit stuff. I've been doing jujitsu for almost 7 years now. It's something that I consider just like CrossFit, like, just like working out and strength and conditioning. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life.
Yep.
I'm very much interested in it, not in the same ways as I was with CrossFit, because I don't really want to get into like what are the politics between the governing bodies of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, you know what? I've had enough. I've had enough of like the politics of like governing bodies.
You don't want to fight
sports.
with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu?
I don't. I really don't. I really don't. So like, you know, I'm interested in it from like a learner's perspective. And when you talk about like, you know, the programming stuff, the reason why I had what I felt and what it seems to be a leg to stand on, like some sort of expertise to lean on, is because my brother and I, my older brother and I, we owned an affiliate for like 5 or 6 years here in LA. And I was basically committed to being a coach for like the rest of my life. Like I was like, this is great. I'm 22. My brother and I own a gym. I'm like doing all the programming. There's a lot of people who like rely on me to like keep them safe and keep them healthy and keep them progressing and like, you know, get their first pull up, get their like 400-pound deadlift or get like a, you know, 200-pound squat or whatever their goals are. I was like, I got to take this really seriously. And so I like did a huge deep dive, which is one of my, you know, I don't know. I like to joke with my wife that like, hey, I'm not on the spectrum, but if I was, it's like this one little thing, which is like, if I get interested in something, I will get rid of everything else in my life to learn everything I can about this thing as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did with like programming. You know, I went to the best coaches, from like powerlifting to strongman to running to gymnastics to CrossFit to everything. And I tried to learn the best I could from them. And I was very critical with my own programming. I was very critical with my coaches' programmings, like the people who worked for us. I tried to teach them everything I could, the why we do certain things, how we do certain things, how it all kind of fits together. And so...
Well, I mean...
So that's where Friday's trash day in the neighborhood, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I hear you.
Yep. So that's where that expertise came from. That's where that voice came from. Like I'm not the type of person that can like bullshit like exceptionally well. Like I might be able to pull it off with like real vague statements. But when it comes to critiquing like the flow of a 13 workout weekend of events that's supposed to find the fittest on earth, you can't bullshit that. You know what I mean? You can't say, you know, a bunch of vague statements and expect people to buy it. Like you have to be really specific. And so that's where that confidence came from, that I felt like I could do that. And so like when I think of, you know, do I get the urge of like coming back and doing more content? Yes, but also no, because I want to be able to make content or talk about the things that are really exciting to me. And, you know, honestly, for the past like 2 years, like the most exciting thing in my life has been like my wife and baby. So,
yeah,
so it's like, no, I don't know. I mean, maybe people do want to hear about that, but then the other part of that is like, how much of it do I really want to share about, also, you know, like this like really personal, intimate part of my life. So, you know, I think that's kind of like the fine line, is like trying to figure out how do I walk that line and, you know, respect myself, my time, my interests, but also, you know, my life and, you know, the people and things inside of it that enrich it so much.
I remember and with my arrogant self, I remember texting or DMing you at one point when your son was about to come. I was like, hey, just remember the first year is not about you at all. Like you're not.
I was actually going through our texts, our DMs, and I saw that and I was like, man, that was really good advice. That was really good advice.
It's not. So I was kind of wondering how that turned out, because I was like, that's how I felt. Like it's not about me.
Yeah, you're spot on, and it has been like that. It was like that. It's been amazing. You know, it's having our son has been the absolute best thing that ever happened to myself and my wife. And you know, it's just been really, really incredible to be this lucky to have a kid like that.
Right? Like when you have a like legit solid home. Like there's kind of nothing better than just legit solid home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been amazing. And that's another reason why it's like, you know, I still work hard, but it's a different type of work. Being like doing the content creation thing, putting out a video every day and editing it and shooting it and planning it and producing it and thinking about tomorrow and making it interesting and not boring and cookie cutter, and finding, you know, ways of like improving my technical setup and improving my technical skills and all this stuff. I was working and traveling to like various events, and
I
like
was
the
gonna
events I would
say,
travel to, it's like, you
you
know,
traveled everywhere, bro. I
was
remember that
everywhere.
yeah, you were with somebody like, did you go see Medeiros too? Did you get?
I never got a chance to visit Medeiros because he was right after I stopped traveling, because I stopped traveling obviously during COVID. I wasn't traveling very much, but right as COVID was opening up is when he started really hitting the scene like super hard. And I ran into him in Ireland for that open workout, and that's where we first met and hung out for a little bit. And he's awesome. He's such a good dude. But after that, I like never got the chance. Like I kind of like slowed my traveling down, so I never really got the chance to go out to his place and train with him or Adam.
Oh, did you meet Knifer too?
I did. I met them both in Ireland at that event.
Did you just tell him? Were you like, I'm the original mullet? Like,
actually, yeah, we did a whole photo. We did like a photo where we like rubbed mullets together, and I was like, dude, you're gonna.
No, I have it. I'm about to share.
Good luck.
It.
Yeah, I was like, good luck. You've now like gotten the mullet power. Like I've passed it along. It is now in your hands.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I actually have that freaking photo.
Do you really? That's wild.
Yeah, I do.
You found it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my God, bro. That's amazing.
Yeah, he was definitely confused as to like why I would want to like rub my hair against his hair, but I was like, come on, man, this is gonna be hilarious. Let's give it a shot. And so we did, and it was great.
Oh my God.
That's great.
Yeah, that's the other one I had to say, because it was like and I'm a big fan. I don't know if you've seen him at all either, because I'm sure you're super busy or whatever, but like when Colton Mertens first came in the scene, and then you had Justin, and then Knifer had a mullet, and I was like, no, Armen's the original mullet. Like, I don't know what's happening.
I actually interviewed Colton like right before regionals, when he first like showed up and like did what he does, like just muscle hamster his way through a bunch of workouts.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed. I kept telling everyone, I'm like, you guys, this farmer is going to show up and kick all of your asses. Like, you have no idea what's about to happen to you. Like, this guy is going to come in, and he may not be able to, like snatch a house, but he's going to run faster than you. He's going to squat faster than you. He's going to be able to do pull-ups faster than you. Like, there's just no range of motion there. He's going to crush you guys. It's going to be great.
Did you see him in ski bag? Was it?
I did. It was insane. Yeah, it was insane. He's like, those squats. He's like a piston. He's just like a bing, 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 bing. It doesn't matter what weight you put on him. He's just like built to like crush that sort of event. It's awesome.
The first ski, I was like, oh my God, dude, you're going too fast. And then he got to the freaking squat, and I was like, oh, you're good. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then everybody was asking him, well, is this going to be easier for you because you're short? And he was like, I'm also, what did he say, 40 or 50 pounds less than everybody else? He's like, yeah. That's going to make it a 200-pound sandbag very, very easy for me to lift and squat and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the thing, is like what he makes up, what he lacks in, like, the range of motion, what he has like as an advantage there, he's like losing on that advantage because of his size, like just pure mass moves mass situation, right? So it's really exciting to see. I think this year, having like the field of competitors that we had at the games this year, the body size differences, I think, is a really positive thing, because for a very long time, it was like, if you were plus or minus half an inch off of 5'9" or 5'8" on the men's side, you were like basically screwed. Like, if you were over 5'9", you had no chance of ever being on the podium at the CrossFit Games. There just wasn't a thing. Like, you had no way of making it. And then like Fikowski broke through, and we started seeing some of the larger athletes show in. And the champion body type is still kind of around there. The champion body type is still like between 5'8" and 5'11" and around 190, 195. But we're now seeing guys like Roman, who's like a house compared to everybody else. He's like 6'1", 220, like just a giant human being compared to these other guys. And he can run with the best of them and outlift most of them. It's just like, that's the body type that I am envisioned always, like thinking about CrossFit. I was like, these guys, like, these are like the true athletes. Like, someone who's a freak like this is going to show up.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we started seeing. I mean, these really large minotaur human beings, like Jake Douglas from I think it was out of
Yo.
Australia.
Huge.
I was like,
Huge.
man, I was like, please make it past the first cut. Like, I need to see like half
Huge.
bull, half man lift weights. Like, show me. He didn't, but it's okay. I'm still rooting him on.
He'll get there.
Just
He'll
show
get
me
there.
show me these big dudes. Like, I want to see like big, giant, jacked dudes. Just like the same way, like, like Laura's such an impressive athlete, not the leanest athlete on the field. And
Nope.
her speech at the end, or like her interview with Nikki at the end there,
Yep.
where she was like, I just want to show women like this is what my body is and this is what it can do. I don't have to look like Barbie. I was like,
Yeah.
like immediately like cut it and started like texting it to like all of my friends. I was like,
Everybody.
you guys, this is the best interview I have ever seen from a champion.
And she is
ever.
that.
Yeah,
Like,
it was so good.
And she doesn't care. And that's the part that I like. She's just like, yo, this is me. I don't give a crap. Like, and she owns every part of it.
Yeah,
And
it was so
like,
good.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's going to ding her because whatever their handstand push-up thing didn't show up or whatever.
Whatever.
But so what? Like,
no, I mean, listen, I'm the first person who was very critical of her after year, seeing her not sort of like make the gains in her handstand push-ups when it came to like competitive events. But to say that she didn't outright win that competition, you still have to be there. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it doesn't matter if one individual little thing might be missing. She did so much upper body pressing. She did so much upper body pulling. Like, she obviously has like the capacity to beat everybody else across that broad test of events and all the events that came before that in the open and the quarterfinals and the semifinals and all this sort of stuff. Like, there's no doubt. Like, you can't say, oh, because there wasn't X movement at the CrossFit Games specifically, it like invalidates stuff. It doesn't work that way. At least not in my opinion. I'm sure someone could make that argument, but
no, I'm good.
I wouldn't buy it.
Well, I mean, my wife would be super happy to tell you that she was very happy there was no run, swim, run in this one, or
Thank
no
God.
kayak, or no.
Yes.
Thank
Yes. We're on the same page.
Because
I'm 100% with you.
Yeah. So a little backstory. When she first introduced me to you, it was very much through those videos that you would break down workouts and you were like, I wouldn't suggest doing it this way. Try it this way. And even when we tried it that way, we still got our asses kicked. So like, we appreciate that little insight. That's kind of how I was introduced to you. But then when we started watching your content more towards the games and stuff like that 1 year where it was like back to back.
No, when I started, like when I was watching your your content, she actually was watching with me on the 1 year. It was like where you were like, can I not see a run, swim, run? Like, I don't need to see a run, swim, kayak. I don't need to see.
We said it at the same time.
She said it
at
like,
the same time. And then when they announced that it was a longer kayak, it was a longer swim, we both had the same reaction. And I was like, see, I do like your people. I do agree with your people. Like, because he understands, like, we don't need to see another run, swim, run, or a run, kayak, paddleboard, whatever. Why do you think that my question was always like, from your, obviously you dive much deeper into the programming and the understanding and the logic behind it. Why do you feel like they did the same event essentially 2 years in a row?
3
years in a row.
That was, well, if you have one person programming the events, and even when it's someone as good at programming events as Dave, there's going to be a couple duds. He had a couple duds in there, but he also had some of the best events they've ever done. So it's like, he had both ends, and way more good than bad for sure.
Yeah.
However, the man doesn't change. So it's like you can have a concept of variance in the method, and you can have this idea of like, I need to test things differently. And there's all these different combinations of stuff that we can put together. But realistically, there's really a narrow range of things that work together well. They might test the similar type of thing over a longer period of time. So you see where people break down, like what we saw with Matt Fraser on like the legless rope climb and the pig. I can't remember which year that was. I think that was in Carson.
15.
And he was like, I didn't even think about how my biceps were going to fall apart because of the difference. The movements were very similar. They required that musculature in a really similar way. So sometimes things work together well in that way. Sometimes things pair together well because they work like opposite ends of the body. I think Fran, right? So, you know, the man doesn't change. The tasks might change, but the guy whose brain it is that's coming up with the structure, the format, the movements, he doesn't change. His history doesn't change. His mentality doesn't change. His way of critiquing his own work and seeing what worked and what didn't according to his mindset, that doesn't change either. And so at a certain point, the tests became very much derivative of here's what Dave likes to do. And that, I think, is why you saw so many things repeat over time, not necessarily because they were new ways of doing things, but because they were Dave's way of doing things. And sometimes that was really good, and sometimes that wasn't really good. And I would argue that his long, slow distance events, the endurance events that he did, were hit and miss because he relied so much on his past experience and the things that he wanted to have repeated over and over again through his sort of lens. And that's his prerogative because he was the guy who's, you know, came up with it all and was, you know, writing the games and, you know, leading the team. So that's his prerogative to do that. I just think that that was a big blind spot in how he sort of approached his you know, how, you know, I forget what he referred to it as, like his after action reports or whatever from after the games. He would like look at his programming and think about where he had made mistakes and what he would do differently. And I think that was one of the places where he just had a really big blind spot. He just saw things that he really liked and he hit it once and he was like, we're just going to keep doing this like run, swim, run, or we're going to keep doing this like paddle, swim. And I was like, all right, well, that's boring. And the same people keep winning it. Like, let's come up with something different. Like, let's try to find parity. Let's try to find where there's differences in the field as opposed to repeating the same events and seeing the same people win it over and over again.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, I know we're running out of time, but before we go, just one more question that I'm dying to ask you. And then I swear to God, I'm out of here and I will release you to your wife because I know how that goes. But just, did you happen to see last year the, what was it? The medley with the different, there was a workout with a single under.
Oh, the new, the skills medley.
That was last year. And it was kind of like, they had the was that the one that had the crossover in it as well?
Yeah.
That like it like kept, it was like a bracketed thing and it kept getting more challenging.
Like the L sit to handstand.
Yes.
Walk.
Yes. I do remember that. That was like a very Adrian Bosman thing. Yeah.
My only question to that is, it has nothing to do with the programming at all. It has to do with the spectacle of it. I died laughing watching the highest skilled CrossFitters on the planet not be able to do single unders. I died laughing and I was okay with it. I did not care. I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. I was like, oh yeah, that's how my double unders look for like 2 years straight. I'm good. Like, it was great.
I would agree with you. I think there's a certain sort of like wow, I just keep running into this same garbage truck. It's amazing. I thought I was going to dodge it by going around the block. I guess like I'm running down his path. That's wild.
He's just, or maybe he feels like you're talking to yourself, so he wants to just make sure you're okay every time. He's like, I'm not sure if this guy's talking to someone or himself.
This really sweaty Armenian man is walking around the neighborhood laughing to himself. So you know, I think that's a super Boz thing to program. Like, he's always had that sort of like bend to the way his mind works and the workouts they put together. And I think that's a really cool thing to test the athletes with. And the flip side of that though is that, to me, that also fell into the classic trap of like, you do kind of have to set your athletes up to look cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you have to give them the opportunity to show off what they can do, not necessarily ding them for the things they can't do. And there's like a fine line there that's never going to be 100% solved, because you have to have tests that are like going to expose the weaknesses of the athletes. It's just when it's something like that basic and that fundamental of like, you just can't skip rope.
That was so great.
Doesn't it sound way worse when you call it skipping
Skip
rope
rope.
instead of
Skip rope,
cylinders?
so
great.
It's like you're gonna skip rope for 30 seconds and you can't fuck it up, and then almost everybody does. Like, what are you doing?
And
How
did
did that
you
even
see
happen?
them do it? Like half of them couldn't do it on 2 feet. Like they couldn't do single unders on 2 feet.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's rough.
Stop it.
It's rough. Yeah,
So
it is interesting to see that happen for sure.
I loved it.
So do you believe that every event the athletes should know about? Because one of my favorite events was chaos, and the fact that they didn't know what was going on. And I almost wish that Dave had kind of pushed the envelope a little bit more with like the different movements. Like, do you feel like the athletes should know at least a portion of every single event? Or did you like that like surprise where they didn't know anything?
I think chaos is one of the coolest things they've done for sure. Like, I think that's one of the ones where Dave like absolutely knocked it out of the park, because the think of what that's exposing, right? Someone like, Fikowski is a perfect example. We call him the professor, right? He's really good at game planning. And as much as people want to talk about, like the sort of the sport of fitness and CrossFit, it's not, there's no such thing as defense. You just do the best you can do, and it really doesn't matter after that, right? You just like execute to the best of your abilities in the environment that you're in, and that's just what you've got. There's no like, no one's trying to stop you from doing something. So the people who are like Fikowski, who can like to a T, to the second, plan out how they're going to best execute their game plan, get thrown for a loop when it comes to something like chaos. But it doesn't help the other type of CrossFitter. It doesn't help the CrossFitter who's like, I'm just going to show up and I'm just like, I'm a game day athlete. When I see the lights and the fans and my competitors, I perform better out here knowing that I can like push against them, because you don't know what's coming next. They could have had another 30 minutes of stuff to do. Like it doesn't necessarily, it's not like they knew it was going to be over after they pulled the thing and jumped over the boxes. Like they just knew like there's the next thing, there's a next thing, there's a next thing. So you have like no real way of like gauging throttle in a workout like that. You just kind of have to go and hope that you picked the right pace based off of the movement that you're given. And I think that's a really cool way of testing this like very raw and like fundamental thing that is like adaptability in the moment, and not just adaptability over the course of the weekend, but like in that exact minute, like, can you adapt your pace to what may or may not happen next?
Yeah.
So I think chaos was cool. I had like I think I did a video on this after chaos where I was like, they should do one full games week like that. Like every athlete on the field, every moment, every time. It's like impossible to make it spectator friendly, but it would be the dopest way of like putting together a workout or like a series of events, because they just never have any idea of what's happening next. It's just like, all right, you guys ready? You're going to start running in that direction, and then you'll hit somebody and they're going to tell you what to do next. Maybe it's turn around, maybe it's run back, maybe it's pick this thing up. You never know. We'll just find out all together. It's like, that's really cool. I think that's a really cool way of testing something really special with what the CrossFitters can do in that environment.
I agree. You should write that somewhere and send it to someone and tell Boz that you want your name featured on that, because that would be so cool. As a lover of the sport and a lover of the methodology, I think that would be such a cool way to test them. So,
dude, as a humongous fan,
there it is. And on that note,
you guys actually, that's my partner. I actually work as a garbage guy, and he's just circling the block waiting for me to be wrapped up here.
Thank you so much, dude. I really appreciate it. It was super cool to finally be able to see you, talk to you, and joke around, have some fun. So,
of course, my pleasure. It's great to put faces to the names. I did a little bit of like Instagram stalking to like just get an idea. So it's good to be able to like talk to you guys and meet you guys like this, and it's my pleasure. I love shooting the shit. I could do this literally all day, except I'd get dehydrated and like die.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I was like, I would love to talk to you and pick your brain about your whole like career and whatever, but like I get it. I got a kid that's asking me for water, and like I'm like, okay, you're dehydrated. I gotta go feed you. Got it.
That's awesome. Well, my pleasure. We should do this again sometime.
Thank you so much, Armen.
Armen, it was very
really
nice to meet you.
Likewise.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
That was the most amazing shit ever. That was so cool.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even. I literally.
Bye.
Yeah, he like literally everything that I saw on YouTube when I used to like watch him all the time, when he used to put content out all the time. That was literally the dude that I watched on his Sands podcast, and literally the dude that I watched like explain workouts and kill himself and be like, don't do that workout the way I just did it because it was terrible. Like he's super that dude. So that, I mean, that was, and he's just so freaking smart.
And he's so chill. He's such a chill, cool dude. And it's
when he told us about BRP,
I know.
Like
now you have a name, honey. Now you officially have a name. And I think it's a really good perspective to see like how life changes and seasons change, and what's important to you at one point might not be important to you at another point, and you still give yourself permission to decide in that moment what's best for you. And, you know, I just thought that was a really good message for him to share, that like, it's just not my thing right now. And
he's a really good example of it. And like I said, he's a guy that has so much knowledge of the sport. He did so much. He had an affiliate. He was super passionate about his members. He was super passionate about the methodology, and, you know, and he brought something to the sport that no one had seen yet. No one had seen, you know, whatever you want to call it. I mean, no one had seen anybody like critiquing things, and, you know, everybody was just kumbaya and whatever. And he kind of brought that new wave thing where it's like, no, I'm going to question this. No, what's that? No, what's that? What?
And for me, like, I have so many more questions about that, and so many more questions of like when he was broadcasting, and like, you know, when you have so many people on the same team that are running a broadcast, like one of my questions I wanted to ask him was like, if you're trying to talk and someone's talking into your ear, how do you keep your train of thought as to where you are versus trying to listen to someone? Because I'm sure that has to be so difficult. But yeah, just hearing, you know, someone questioning the sport and questioning what's going on, and putting his opinion out. And then, you know, of course, like, how do you deal when people backlash at you? Because we all have an opinion. We all have our own thoughts and our own feelings and certain situations. And as we know, they're not always received the best.
Yeah.
You know, so, oh my God, so many questions, and so cool to,
there's BRP in the background. Yeah.
Of course. And I love the story that like he got it from his wife and he keeps it. So
yeah,
super cool. But you get to have him on again if you want to, so you can ask all those questions. So super cool.
If he ever wanted to do it again, I would totally do it again. He was so fun and so just chilling, so just laid back. Like that was super fun. I enjoyed that immensely.
Yeah,
so
you did good.
Yeah, it was a good time, my babe.
All right.
All right.
All right. Bye, guys.
Splitting
See you
things
next
out.
time. Bye.